And we're going to continue with cause hunting from the Jungle Book. What did we learn in the last section? Monkeys are bad. Bagheera and Baloo don't like the monkeys. Mowgli had fun with the monkeys. It's an allegory, and sadly, it's a racist allegory, but it's not surprising who it's from. The thing that we have to remember when we read Rudyard Kipling is there are a lot of fun things in his stories, but he also invented the concept of something called white man's burden. And that is basically that it is the job of white people to rule over people of color because they are not intelligent. Um, the thing of it is, I like his fiction. I don't agree at all with his politics. So when we read stories like this, just like when characters appear in 100 years ago in comics that are incredibly racially insensitive, we, number one, call out that racism. Number two, we say, well, this was well over 100 years ago. Number three, we say, still not an excuse. So, sorry for that long introduction, but yes, the monkeys in this are clearly a metaphor for black people, even though Mowgli, it is said, has dark skin. We'll pick up where we left off. The next thing he remembered was feeling hands on his legs and arms, hard, strong little hands, and then a swash of branches in his face. And then he was staring down through the swaying boughs as Baloo woke the jungle with his deep cries, and Bagheera bounded up the trunk with every tooth bared. The Banderlog howled with triumph and scuffled away to the upper branches, where Bagheera dared not follow, shouting, "He has noticed us! Bagheera has noticed us! All the jungle people admire us for our skill and our cunning." Then they began their flight, and the flight of the monkey people through the tree land is one of the things nobody can describe. They have their regular roads and crossroads, up hills and down hills, all laid out from 50 to 70 or 100 feet above ground, and by these they can travel even at night if necessary. Two of the strongest monkeys caught Mowgli under the arms and swung off with him through the tree tops, 20 feet at a bound. Had they been alone, they could have gone twice as fast, but the boy's weight held them back. Sick and giddy as Mowgli was, he could not help enjoying the wild rush through the glimpses of earth far down below frightened him, and the terrible check and jerk at the end of the swing over nothing but the empty air brought his heart between his teeth. His escort would rush him up a tree till he felt the thinnest topmost branches crackle and bend under them, and then with a cough and a whoop would fling themselves into the air, outward and downward, and bring up, hanging by their hands or their feet, to the lower limbs of the next tree. Sometimes he could see for miles and miles across the still green jungle, as a man on the top of a mast can see for miles at sea, and then the branches and leaves would lash him across the face, and he and his two guards would be almost down to earth again. So bounding and crashing and whooping and yelling, the whole tribe of Banderlogs swept along the tree roads, with Mowgli their prisoner. For a time he was afraid of being dropped, then he grew angry, but knew better than to struggle, and then he began to think. The first thing was to send back word to Baloo and Bagheera, for at the pace the monkeys were going, he knew his friends would be left far behind. It was useless to look down, for he could only see the top sides of the branches. So he stared upward and saw far away in the blue Chill the kite, balancing and wheeling as he kept watch over the jungle, waiting for things to die. Chill saw that the monkeys were carrying something, and dropped a few hundred yards to find out whether their load was good to eat. He whistled with surprise when he saw Mowgli being dragged up to a tree-top, and heard him give the kite call for, "We be of one blood, thou and I." The waves of the branches closed over the boy, but Chill balanced away to the next tree in time to see a little brown face come up again. "Mark my trail!" Mowgli shouted. "Tell Baloo of the Seeonee pack and Bagheera of the Council Rock." In whose name, brother? Chill had never seen Mowgli before, though of course he had heard of him. Mowgli the Frog, Man-cub they call me. Mark my trail. The last words were shrieked as he was being swung through the air, but Chill nodded and rose up till he looked no bigger than a speck of dust, and there he hung, watching with his telescope eyes the swaying of the treetops as Mowgli's escort whirled along. They never go far, he said with a chuckle. They never do what they set out to do, always pecking at new things or the Bandar log. This time, if I have any eyesight, they have pecked down trouble for themselves, for Baloo is no fledgling, and Bagheera can, as I know, kill more than goats. So he rocked on his wings, his feet gathered up under him, and waited. Meanwhile, Baloo and Bagheera were furious with rage and grief. Bagheera climbed as he had never climbed before, but the thin branches broke beneath his weight, and he slipped down, his claws full of bark. "Why didst thou not warn the man-cub?" he roared to poor Baloo, who had set off at a clumsy trot in the hope of overtaking the monkeys. "What was the use of half-slaying him with blows if thou didst not warn him?" "Haste, oh haste! We may catch them yet," Baloo panted. "At that speed it would not tire a wounded cow. Teacher of the law, cub-bearer, a mile of that rolling to and fro would burst thee open. Sit still and think, make a plan. This is no time for chasing. They may drop him if we follow too close." "Arula! Woo! They may have dropped him already, being tired of carrying him. Who can trust the Bandar log? Put dead bats in my head. Give me black bones to eat. Roll me in the hives of the wild bees, that I may be stung to death, and bury me with the hyena, for I am the most miserable of bears. Arulala! Wahoo! Oh, Mowgli, Mowgli! Why did I not warn thee against the monkey folk instead of breaking thy head? Now perhaps I may have knocked the day's lesson out of his mind, and he will be alone in the jungle without the master words." Baloo clasped his paws over his ears and rolled to and fro, moaning. "At least he gave me all the words correctly a little time ago," said Bagheera impatiently. "Baloo, thou hast neither memory nor respect. What would the jungle think if I, the Black Panther, curled myself up like Ikki the Porcupine and howled? What do I care what the jungle thinks? He may be dead by now." "Unless and until they drop him from the branches in sport or kill him out of idleness, I have no fear for the man-cub. He is wise and well taught, and above all he has the eyes that make the jungle people afraid. But, and it is a great evil, he has the power. He is in the power of the Bandar log, and they, because they live in trees, have no fear of any of our people." Bagheera licked one forepaw thoughtfully. "Fool that I am! Oh, fat, brown, root-digging fool that I am!" said Baloo, uncurling himself with a jerk. "It is true what Hati the wild elephant says. To each his own fear, and they, the Bandar log, fear Kaa the rock snake. He can climb as well as they can. He steals the young monkeys in the night. The whisper of his name makes their wicked tails cold. Let us go to Kaa. What will he do for us? He is not of our tribe, being footless, and with most evil eyes," said Bagheera. "He is very old and very cunning. Above all, he is always hungry," said Baloo hopefully. "Promise him many goats." "He sleeps for a full month after he has once eaten. He may be asleep now, and even were he awake, what if he would rather kill his own goats?" Bagheera, who did not know much about Kaa, was naturally suspicious. "Then in that case, thou and I together, old hunter, might make him see reason." Here Baloo rubbed his faded brown shoulder against the panther, and they went off to look for Kaa the rock python. They found him stretched out on a warm ledge in the afternoon sun, admiring his beautiful new coat, for he had been in retirement for the last 10 days, changing his skin, and now he was very splendid, darting his big blunt-nosed head along the ground, and twisting the 30 feet of his body into fantastic knots and curves, and licking his lips as he thought of his dinner to come. "He has not eaten," said Baloo, with a grunt of relief, as soon as he saw the beautiful mottled brown and yellow jacket. "Be careful, Bagheera. He is always a little blind after he has changed his skin, and very quick to strike." Kaa was not a poison snake. In fact, he rather despised the poison snakes as cowards. But his strength lay in his hug, and when he had once lapped his huge coils round anybody, there was no more to be said. "Good hunting!" cried Baloo. Sitting up on his haunches, like all snakes of his breed, Kaa was rather deaf, and did not hear the call at first. Then he curled up, ready to face any accident, his head lowered. "Good hunting for us all," he answered. "Oh ho, Baloo, what dost thou do here? Good hunting, Bagheera. One of us at least needs food. Is there any news of game afoot, a doe now, or even a young buck? I am as empty as a dried well." "We're hunting," said Baloo carelessly. He knew that he must not hurry Kaa. He is too big. He knew that you must not hurry Kaa. He is too big. "Give me permission to come with you," said Kaa. "A blow, more or less, is nothing to thee, Bagheera or Baloo. But I have to wait and wait for days in the wood path, and climb half a night on the mere chance of a young ape. Pshaw! The branches are not what they were when I was young. Rotten twigs and dry boughs they are they all. Maybe thy great weight has something to do with the matter," said Baloo. "I am a fair length," said Kaa with a little pride. "But for all that, it is the fault of this new-grown timber. I came very near falling on my last hunt, very near indeed, and the noise of my slipping, for my tail was not tight wrapped round the tree, waked the Bandar-log, and they called me most evil names." "Foolish yellow earthworm," said Bagheera under his whiskers, as though he were trying to remember something. "Have they ever called me that?" said Kaa. "Something of that kind it was that they shouted to us last moon, but we never noticed them. They will say anything, even that thou hast lost all thy teeth, and wilt not face anything bigger than a kid, because they are indeed shameless, the Bandar-log, because thou art afraid of a he-goat's horns." Oh, that was Bagheera that said that. Let's try that again. "Something of that kind it was they shouted to us last moon, but we never noticed them. They will say anything, even that thou hast lost all thy teeth, and wilt not face anything bigger than a kid, because they are indeed shameless, those Bandar-log, because thou art afraid of the he-goat's horns," Bagheera went on sweetly. Now a snake, especially a weary old python like Kaa, very seldom shows that he is angry, but Baloo and Bagheera could see the big swallowing muscles on either side of Kaa's throat ripple and bulge. "The Bandar-log have shifted their grounds," he said quietly. "When I came into the sun today, I heard them whooping among the tree-tops." "It is the Bandar-log that we follow now," said Baloo, but his words stuck in his throat, for that was the first time in his memory that one of the jungle people had owned to being interested in the doings of the monkeys. Beyond doubt, then, it is no small thing that takes two such hunters, leaders in their own jungle, I am certain, on the trail of the Bandar-log," Kaa replied courteously, as he swelled with curiosity, and we will pause there.